Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn how to make a small studio in Plan. So we are going to use the layers that we created in the last video. You can find a link to that video over to the top right corner. So I'm going to select these objects that I had drawn on the screen and I'm going to press delete. And as you can see, we are currently in the thick layer and we'll keep it that way. Now I'm going to draw a rectangle to represent the size of the living space or the bedroom in the studio. So I'm going to put REC, the shortcut for rectangle. I'm going to press enter. But before that, I'm going to check the units of this drawing. So I'm going to press UN, press enter. And as you can see, it says in inches. I'm going to change this to millimeters and I'm going to change the precision to 0 and I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to start by drawing the living space in the studio. So I'm going to press REC for rectangle. I'm going to click on any random point, stretch it out, and I'm going to put in the dimensions of my room. So I'm going to put 3.5 meters, but since we are drawing in millimeters, it's going to be 3,500 units. I'm going to press comma and I'm going to put 5.5 meters. As you can see, the rectangle is quite big, so we have to zoom out using the middle button of our mouse. I'm going to rotate this. RO is the shortcut for rotate. Press enter. I'm going to click on this point. And right now I can rotate it at any angle. So let's change that by pressing F8 and activating the auto mode. And I'm happy with this. So I'm going to just click here. Okay. Now I'm going to offset the exterior walls by 27 centimeters. So that's going to be 270 millimeters. And I'm going to use a tool called offset. So the shortcut for that is O. You can see it's shown up on the drop down. Press enter. It's asking us to specify the offset distance. So I'm going to put 270, enter. I'm going to select the line or the polyline and I'm going to offset it outside. Make sure you don't offset it inside, but offset it outside because you want to maintain the clear dimensions of the room. Press escape. Now let's trace the bathroom inside this studio. I'm going to press PL, enter. I'm going to place it on this point. I'm going to come over here to the polar snapping options and I'm going to activate all of them with the exception of nearest. I'm going to press PL, enter, place it on this point and then I'm going to trace it out till I get a green dotted line and I'm going to put in 1350. Now I'm just going to connect that line down here and I can press escape. Now I just have to offset this line to the size of my internal walls, which is going to be 15 centimeters. So I'm going to offset again, O, enter, 150, enter, like that. I'm going to do the same thing to draw the other side of the wall. So I'm going to place my cursor on this point, hover, and I'm going to put a dimension for the toilet as 2.2 meters. Actually, let's change that to 2.4. I'm going to connect here, and I'm going to offset this by 15 centimeters once again. Now I'm going to fillet this line without using any radius. So F, enter, and for radius I'm going to press R, enter, and I'm going to put 0, enter. And now I can just click the lines that I want to fillet. Once I've conducted one fillet operation, I can just press enter to continue fillet. Let's see what is the distance that is left over here. For that I'll put DI to measure distance. Place it on this point, and we get a distance of 950 millimeters. So I think that is a little too small for a doorway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the stretch command and reduce the size of this toilet by 20 centimeters. So S for stretch, enter. And now I'm going to use a green region selection by clicking and dragging my mouse to the left, selecting the lines that I want to stretch, pressing enter, click it on any point, and now I get to stretch it up by 20 centimeters, which is 200 millimeters. Now let's check this distance once again. Okay, that's much better. Now let's draw the doors. PL for polyline. Going to place it here. Press escape. And now I'm going to copy this polyline over the width of my door. So I'm going to press CO for copy. Pick a base point. Move it in that direction. And press 1000 units. It has copied it over. Press escape. We are going to do the same thing for this door here. Escape. Copy that line over. This time, since it's a toilet door on an internal masonry, I'm just going to make a door of width 80 centimeters. Escape. Now I can go ahead and trim this extra lines. TR, shortcut, enter, enter once again, and we can delete these extra lines. Now we also have these other lines. We can go ahead and delete that as well. And we can just extend the lines now. Let's also trim this line. Escape. Here as well. Now let's close this flow here. I'm going to press L for line, enter. I'm going to close it here. Now this line is once again in the thick layer. Let's change that by selecting it, go to the layer drop down and selecting thin. Escape. And now you can see our floor plan taking shape. Let's draw a window to this bathroom. L for line, enter. I'm going to place it at the center of this line segment and draw a line through. And now I'm just going to offset it by the width of the window. And I'm going to make a window of 60 centimeters. So I'm going to offset it on either side by 30 centimeters. So O, enter, and I'm going to put 300 units. Select the line, offset it this side and the other side, press escape, select the middle line, delete. Now we can just trim the excess line. TR, enter twice, select the lines to delete, escape. So now let's add some windows to the living area. Before we do that, we'd like to discuss is that generally when we draw a plan, the section plane is cut at around 1 meter, but this is really up to you. You could imagine to cut it at 1.1 meters or 1.2 meters. The point being, it would depend on like where your window sills and furniture projections could start. So the reason I do it at 1 meter or 1.1 meter is that usually my sills are at 90 centimeters, so that the section plane could cut the windows and you could see the projection of all the furnitures as well. So now let's go ahead and create the windows for our living space. I'm going to press PL for polyline. I'm going to take this point. Since my snapping is on, I can trace a point, say 1 meter away from here. Close it like this. Now I'm going to select this point and I'm going to mirror it using this as the mirror line, these two corners. I'll say no. And now this point, this line is also 1 meter from this point, but I want to move it even more. So using the ortho mode, I'm going to move it by another 1 meter there. So in total, this will be around 2 meters. And we can just mirror it across the other side. So I'm going to use this as the center point and just mirror it. And I'm going to say no. So this will be one window and this will be another. Let's go ahead and trim that. Now let's draw the windows. I'm just going to show you a rough example of a window over here. So let's draw a rectangle. I'm going to do it by a 60 centimeter by 1 meter window. So this is ideally going to be this window in the bathroom. Now let's draw the frame. So I'm going to show a thickness of 60 centimeters and I'm just going to offset this polyline inside. Yeah. Now when I cut my section line, it's going to be represented something in this way, and we are going to be looking at it from the top. Like that. So when we cut through this window, we are going to see the thickness of these frames and you're going to see the glass pane itself. So let's try and represent that. So this frame, I've used a thickness of 60. So let's draw the frame first. I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to draw it of 60 by 60. I'm going to select it and I'm going to place it in the middle of this wall. I'm going to make a copy of it like that. Now because you're cutting it at a level that cuts the window, you're also going to see the window sill. So I'm going to use a rectangle to draw that. However, this rectangle, I'm going to place it in a lighter layer. So I'm going to place it on a medium layer. Now let's go ahead and show the window. So for that, I'm going to draw connecting lines from the frame. Let's put this in this layer. And now let's draw a polyline to represent the glass pane. Like that. Press escape. Let's put this in the medium layer. Also, another cool trick to represent thickness is to change the global width properties of a polyline. So let's find out how to do that. I'm going to press PRO P and open properties. I'm going to select the polyline and I'm going to come over here to the geometry and I'm going to click on global width and I'm going to change this to 15. Enter, and I'm going to escape. Now you see this polyline has gotten some thickness. When you zoom out, it will look really good as a representation of glass in this window. So this is just another cool trick that you can use in your drawing to show thicknesses for certain materials. Now if you see this windowsill rectangle that we have drawn is slightly overpowering the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use draw order to push it back in the drawing. So I'm going to press D, R for draw order, press enter. I'm going to select the object. I'm going to press B for back, enter. Now you can see in terms of a draw order, it has pushed that rectangle behind so that the polylines of the wall are visible over it. It makes our drawing look a little bit better. Now using this same idea, let's draw the other windows. So I'm going to draw a polyline. I'm going to trace this edge using this point. And I'm going to press C to close the polyline. Now I can just match the layer. Like that. And now I can flip this by mirroring it. I'll activate ortho mode, so F8. Say no. And I'm going to use draw order to push them behind. Like that. Now let's go ahead and draw the rest of the windows. So I'm going to copy this and this. I'm going to copy the frame and the glass pane, place it here, and I'm going to place it here. I'm going to rotate this, and now I'm going to place another frame. Now I have no way of actually placing it in the center of this corner, so I'm just going to keep it here. Press escape. I'm going to draw a line, and now I can move this into place by snapping at the center. I can delete this. Now let's stretch these points. Like that. Let's go ahead and mirror it on this side as well. So I'm going to select all of the elements of this window and mirror it. Now let's go ahead and draw some doors in our drawing. So I'm going to show you one way of drawing a door. There are many. So you should do what fits your work best. So first I'm going to offset by 25 mm the edges of the door. This could be anything depending on how you imagine your door to be. Like that. Now I'm going to draw a polyline at the center of this door. Now we don't need these lines. I'm going to draw another polyline from this point all the way there. Now I'm going to imagine that my door is of thickness 40 centimeters. So I'm going to offset that polyline by 20 centimeters because I want to find the midpoint of the leaf of the door or the panel of the door. Like that. I can go ahead and delete this point. Now I can just draw a circle. I'm going to use the outer edge of that leaf, place it here, and now I can just trim it. So this arc is visually representing the swing of the door. Now I can go ahead and select this polyline and I can add that same thickness to it. So I'm going to give it a thickness of 40. There you go. I'm going to select this and I'm going to put it in the graphics layer, which is the dashed layer. And as you can see, the dashes are too fine for us to see it when we zoom it out. So let's change its properties. Here in line type scale, let's try something like 10. Okay. Let's try again 25. That's a little too much. Let's say 15. I think that's a good size. Let's press escape. We can delete this. Now you can see we have drawn our door. Let's do a similar exercise for this door. So I'm going to draw a polyline. I'm going to offset the edges by 25 mm. I'm going to trim this polyline. I'm going to delete these points. Draw another polyline from this edge. I'm going to offset that by 20. Delete this. Now I can draw a circle from this point to here. Can trim these ends and then delete the rest to make our work faster. Now I can just go ahead and delete this. And now I will use match properties instead. So I'll select this polyline and hover and select this. I'll press escape and do it again. Here. Now we have drawn our doors. So now let's go ahead and add some furniture to our drawing. So first I'm going to add the bed. So to show the bed, I'm going to just draw a rectangle polyline, REC, enter, click on any point, and I'm going to make the bed of size 1.1, comma 2.1 meters. Going to rotate it. And now I want to place it at this corner, but I don't want it touching the wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset this polyline. And now I'm going to select our bed and place it here. I can select this polyline and delete it. And let's put our bed in a different layer. I'm going to put it in medium. Let's draw a table here. So rectangle, click a point. Let's do it 60 centimeters by 120 centimeters. Let's move it away from the wall and let's offset the wall. Let's move this table here like that. Delete. Now let's also change the layers. So match layer. So let's change the layer. Select the object that you want to change the layer. Enter, select the layer that you want. Like that. Let's draw a chair as well. So to show that, I'm going to draw a circle of 250 radius. Let's offset this by 5. Okay. And let's move this out a bit. Yeah. We can match layer or match properties as well. I'll just use match properties. And now let's trim this line. So we have drawn a table with a chair. We have drawn a bed. Let's detail out the bed a little more. I'll place it here, then I'll move it. That's properties. Now I'm going to fillet the edges to make it look like a pillow. So F, I'm going to put a radius of 50 millimeters. Yeah. I'm going to draw a line here and just move it to this side. And I'm going to basically try to show the bed sheet. So I'm going to turn ortho off. Like that. Match properties once again. And let's also fillet the edges of this bed. There you go. Now we have the bed ready, we have a work desk. Let's draw the pantry. So for that, I'm just going to draw a line. I'm going to move this line up. I'm going to activate ortho mode and move it up by 600 millimeters to show the counter space. Going to do the same here. I'm going to move this by 2.2 meters, and let's fillet the edges. So F, enter. This time R, enter, and radius of 0. Select the two lines and it will fillet them. Let's change the layer. Let's also see how much space we get on our counter table. So just as a guideline, I'm just going to space this out by 60 centimeters. So let's put a sink in this corner. I can delete this line. I'm going to put a sink here. Offset by 50 centimeters. And I can offset this by 200. I'm just going to draw a polyline here. Delete these lines. Delete this one as well. Delete this. I'll put this in the thin layer. I'll draw the drain of this. So because my snapping geometry is activated for geometric center, I can get the center of this rectangle and draw a circle of radius 30. Let's match properties once again. Let's see what is this distance. 500. I think we can make it 400. So I'll move this point by 100 millimeters and move this center to its new geometric center. I'll just draw the tap or the faucet. Draw a rectangle of 120 by 25. This is just representative. Place it in the center. I'll extend it a bit by 50. And trim this line. Actually, I feel this sink is a little too wide. So let's trim this by 253. So let's stretch this rectangle. So that gives a width of 70 and a length of 40 centimeters. That's good. Now let's draw the stove. First, I'm going to trim these lines by just moving this point. Now I'm just going to offset these lines by 30 centimeters. And I'm going to draw rectangles in these regions. We can delete this. Offset this by 5 centimeters. Can delete these. Actually, we can keep this line. Match properties. I'm going to draw circles in these. This can be 60. Copy this over here. I'm going to draw a larger circle here of say 90 and draw a smaller one here of 40. Actually, we'll make these large as well, so let's make these. Let's delete this, draw again, make this 70. Let's copy this over here, delete this one, and let's make this one a radius of 50. Yeah, so we have drawn our stove. Let's just match properties. It's like a 4-burner stove with one of them for a really large pot and one for like a teapot or a kettle. Now let's draw a fridge. So let's draw a rectangle of 70 by 60. Let's place it here. Delete these lines and move it away from the wall by 10 centimeters. Match properties and draw a line here to represent the dough. So let's go ahead and detail this plan a little more, especially in the bathroom over here. Let's first add a sink. So for that I'm going to draw a rectangle and I'm going to keep it of size 450 by 500, and I'm going to round these corners. So I'm going to use fillet R for radius. I'm going to give it a radius of 100. Same this side. Now I'm going to offset this by 5 centimeters. And I'm going to pull this line in by another 5 centimeters. Now I'll just place this sink in the corner and I will move it up by 10 centimeters like that. Now let's mark the area for the shower. So I'm going to draw a line from here and I'm going to move it by 80 centimeters. So this is going to be my shower area. And now I'm going to draw the WC. So let's draw a rectangle of 40 by 650. Let's rotate this. Let's place this here and move it up. Let's move it up by 200 millimeters. Okay. Now let's round the corners to make it look like a WC. So I'm going to give it a radius of 150. That offset by 50. Let's move this up by 100. Let's draw a circle to show the drainage a circle of radius 30 mm, and let's move this in by 100 centimeters. Let's put these in the appropriate layer. So I'm going to put this in the thin layer. I'm going to put this WC in the medium layer, and I'm going to put this sink also in the medium layer. Let's also show a drainage point for this sink, so I'm just going to copy this, move it here, and move it in by 100 centimeters. Let's finish denoting the shower area. So I'm just going to draw two cross lines here. I'm going to copy this circle over, paste it here. I'll delete this. Now I'm just going to match properties and delete these extra lines. So now let's go ahead and hatch our walls. So to do that, I'm going to press H, enter, and I'm going to select this region inside the wall. I'm going to press enter. Now let's change that. Let's select the hatch, go over here to the ribbon, and click on this drop down, and we'll get a variety of hatches to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and keep the same hatch. However, I'm going to select the hatch again and come over to the properties panel. Let's close this. Okay, I'm going to select the hatch, go over here under hatch pattern scale. I'm going to change that to 100. It's not big enough, so let's change that to 250. I think it can be more. Let's change that to 100, 500. Press escape. That's better. So let's put this hatch in its own layer. So click on layer properties and let's create a layer for it. Let's call it hatch. Let's give it a shade of gray. Now we can close it. Let's select the object. Let's go to home and manually select the layer. Done. Now let's add more to this hatch object by selecting a pick point here and selecting the regions where you want to show a hatch on your walls. Press enter when you're done. There you go. Now let's move this diagram a little to the side. Let's add a section line. I'm going to draw a section from this end to here. I'm going to place it a little closer. Like that. So that when we draw a section, we can know that it's going to follow this section plane. Let's draw some section markups. So I'm going to draw a line of 200 mm and one more 200. Let's rotate this. Click on the center. Let's rotate by 45. Let's rotate it once again like that. Let's add a text here. So TXT for text. Let's rotate this. Let's change the text size. Come over here to the properties panel and change this height to 150. Much better. Let's move this. I'll disable auto so it's easier to move it. Like that. Let's select this markup and copy it here. Let's stretch and bring this closer. Let's activate auto mode and bring it closer to the wall. There you go. Let's select this line and put it in the dashed layer. Let's change the line type scale to 50. We are just going to use this line right now for reference. It can be deleted later. So here you can see we have our plan almost ready. The only thing missing is some text. So I'm going to select this text box already created. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to move it into our studio and I'm going to name it living space. I'm going to move it to the center of the room and I'm going to create a layer for this. So let's go to layer properties, create a new layer. Let's call this text and let's give it a color green. Let's change the line weight to 0.9. That's okay. So let's select the text and change the layer. Let's add a text for the bathroom. Let's double click on the text. Name it bathroom. Let's center it to the room like that. Now you can see that our plan is complete. Next video I'm going to show you how to draw a section out of this. So just stay tuned. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.